These two triangular prisms require completely different strategies to solve, despite them looking identical. Sure, one is much smaller than the other, but the smaller one could be upscaled and work exactly the same. Can you tell the difference between them? In just a moment, I'll show you how both puzzles turn, although the difference still won't be obvious immediately. This isn't an unfamiliar idea for me, as I have a history of making puzzles that look like other puzzles. For example, this isn't a 2x2, this isn't a 3x3, this isn't a 4x4, this isn't a 3x3x2, and neither is this. But I consider these triangular prisms to be in a slightly different category from all of those, for reasons I'll explain later. Today I'll go through the concept behind these two triangular prisms, show their mechanisms, demonstrate how they actually work, and finally scramble and solve them. If you're interested in unique puzzles like this, be sure to like and subscribe, and as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. So let's see how long it takes you to figure out what differentiates these two triangular prisms. I'll show off one move at a time. On both puzzles, you can turn the top layer by 120 degree increments, and also on both puzzles, you can turn the side layers by 180 degree increments. Any clue yet how they're different? Here's a hint. For the smaller one, I've actually already shown you all of the moves it can make. But the larger prism has one more trick up its sleeve. The top layer can be rotated by 60 degrees and you can still make side layer turns. But if you try the same on the smaller prism, it doesn't work. It might seem like a trivial difference, but it actually makes the two puzzles completely different to solve. Now's a good time to formally introduce these puzzles. This is the Mini Pyratwist, while this is the triangular cheese. Can you guess which one's easier? It's actually the larger one, which might be a little surprising. I'll show you why, but for that it first needs to actually exist. So let's dive into the process that led to this puzzle's creation. I bought the Mini Pyratwist in 2018 from its designer Greg Pfennig. It's printed in nylon using SLS, which many years ago was the most popular method of 3D printing custom puzzles. It works by having a laser melt powder into a precise shape, which is why all SLS puzzles have a very grainy finish. Although it's not externally blocked, you can see here the Mini Pyratwist can't make the 60-degree turns of the triangular cheese. So I don't consider the triangular cheese analogous to the evil twin puzzles. It's more just an unbandaging of a puzzle. SLS has slowly fallen out of favor due to continuously increasing costs, combined with FDM printer quality improving dramatically. To keep the cost of printing down, the Mini Pyratwist is really small. If you look at SLS puzzles that were made over the years, many of them are actually much smaller than what you'd expect, likewise to keep the price of printing more reasonable. The Mini Pyratwist has a primitive core that consists of 4 friction pegs on one side and a cavity on the other side. Of course, this is a non-adjustable friction fit, which means if it's not perfect, then there's really no way to improve it. I can't say for certain that it's gotten significantly worse over the years, but I believe the core has been clamping together less tightly after the puzzle popped a few months ago. This results in the outer corners being a bit floppy, making my personal copy of the Mini Pyratwist kind of annoying to solve. But there's another reason I find the Mini Pyratwist annoying to solve, which may surprise you. The reason is, I just can't solve it. There's a certain permutation of last layer pieces that I've never been able to figure out during the 5 years that I've owned this puzzle. I know it's a very easy puzzle, and I could find a solution online in seconds. But I wanted to draw the line here, and learn to solve it without external resources. I've said in previous videos that I'd like to get better at solving unfamiliar puzzles, and I want to start following through on that. The Mini Pyratwist seems like a good place to start, because if I can't figure this out, what's the point of having it at all? It's not as if it'll be enjoyable to come back to. These thoughts, combined with the Mini Pyratwist's stability being a concern, made me want to design literally a bigger and better version. And since it looks like it can make 60-degree turns, I thought it would be fun to make that a reality and have the new prism able to make those moves. Accordingly, let's design the triangular cheese. Although the Mini Pyratwist and triangular cheese look the same, the triangular cheese actually needs a much more complicated mechanism. On the Mini Pyratwist, the edges and corners are mechanically different. To enable the 60-degree turns, they would need to be internally identical, since any piece can swap with any other piece on the triangular cheese. I do have the floppy hexagonal cheese designed already, but But I can't just split it in half because the pieces are not all identical. What I decided to do though is use it as a hidden middle layer. So I cut down the mechanism as much as possible and added 2 square one-esque layers on the outside. With a square one type mechanism, all of the pieces are automatically identical internally if they occupy the same amount of space around the circular mechanism, thus achieving the requirement for the triangular cheeses mechanism. Just while a square one has a 1x1x2 central layer, this has a floppy hexagonal cheese central layer, like my original hexagon one, except now it's also hidden. To keep it aligned, I bandaged one corner of the floppy hexagonal cheese to an external corner. I actually regret not having bandaged it to an external edge because it would have been easier to get a screwdriver to the internal screw through that. Were you expecting the mechanism to be this complicated? Cheeses typically have deceivingly complex mechanisms. For example, Vladimir's cheese by Oscar is made up of 49 pieces despite you only being able to see 14 of them. But anyway, now that the triangular cheese is designed, let's print it. Now that the triangular cheese is assembled, I will say it looks pretty nice with the fluorescent stickers. The vertical turns work pretty well, credited to the internal floppy hexagonal cheese mechanism. Unfortunately, the slice turn is stiffer than I would really prefer, meaning there needs to be more clearance in the square one style mechanism that controls the slice turn. The puzzle's still totally usable, and I don't need it to be perfect since I'm not going to be selling it, so it's not really worth it for me to go back and make a second one with improved clearances. I'm going to be doing extensive tolerance tests anyway once I finish my ABS setup later this month. So let's get some B-roll and then solve the triangular cheese, after which I'll learn to solve the Mini Pyratwist and finally get that puzzle solved as well after 5 years of owning it. Because it's the easier of the two puzzles, I'm going to start by scrambling and solving the triangular cheese. The surefire method of solving any two-layered cheese is to first get all of the pieces on their correct layers, meaning one face is all white and the other is all yellow. Then you can just swap adjacent pieces on each layer until both layers are solved. I don't think it makes for a super interesting solve, but there's definitely other methods you could try using that might be more fun. For example, the square 2, which is essentially just a cheese, can be solved by the adjacent swap method. But you can also reduce it to a square 1 and solve it like that instead, which honestly might be more fun. For the triangular cheese though, I'll just be using the adjacent part swap method because it's the quickest. Okay, without any trouble, the triangular cheese is solved. Let's now move on to the Mini Pyratwist. To be completely honest, neither the Mini Pyratwist nor the triangular cheese are great turners. So to learn to solve the Mini Pyratwist, I actually bought this two-layer pentahedron, which turns great. Even though it's pillowed and stickerless, it's still of course the same puzzle geometrically as the Mini Pyratwist, having the exact same pieces on both layers. So I'll be using it to create today's algorithms. My goal right now is to come up with all the algorithms needed to solve the pentahedron, but not necessarily the fastest or more efficient ones. There's always going to be time to improve the method later, and the first goal is just to get the puzzle solved at all. Where I'm at currently with the pentahedron, I can solve the first layer intuitively, and here I've done the white side. I really just need to come up with two algorithms. The first one would cycle around 3 edges, like you can see on the yellow layer now, and the other algorithm would swap 2 of the corners on the yellow layer. I'm first going to work on a commutator for the edge 3 cycle. The way a commutator 3 cycle works is you swap 2 of the pieces, thus mixing up the bottom layer, then you turn the top layer to the remaining 2 pieces and perform the swap backwards, thus restoring the bottom layer. So 3 cycle is a combination of 2 swaps, really. I'm first going to swap the green and red edges. Now that the green and red edges have been swapped, I'll turn the top layer and do the algorithm in reverse to swap the blue and red edges and also restore the white layer. And everything is now in its correct place, meaning the 3 cycle of edges has worked. Now I'm going to start working on a way to swap 2 top layer corners. I believe this is considered a parity because you can't make a commutator for this situation. No matter which 2 pairs of corners you swap, they will all become solved. So you can't perform a sequence of 2 swaps to get everything solved. Instead, what I'm going to do is swap the 2 corners without caring about the edges. Now all the corners are solved, but the edges are mixed up and we have a white one on the yellow side. To fix this, I'm actually going to turn it up to the top layer and do my 3-cycle algorithm on the puzzle in that position. This should restore all the colors to their correct faces after undoing the setup moves and actually leave the puzzle fully solved. And here we are, my technique has worked and the puzzle is now solved. So I think I'm now fully capable of solving the Mini Pyratwist. Let's finally get to it, shall we? Finally, the Mini Pyratwist has been solved using algorithms I came up with myself. I think I'll keep it as a display piece and not really scramble it anymore because of how slowly I have to take turns. If I want to solve it again, I have the pentahedron. Anyway, now that my original goal of solving the puzzle myself is complete, I want to look online and see if there's better ways of solving it than what I came up with. I checked out Cranky Old Cuber's tutorial for the pentahedron, and he shows some substantially shorter algorithms to achieve the same piece maneuvers that I wanted. So, on my own time, I'll review how these algorithms work and see if I can improve my own process of coming up with these algorithms. It's definitely overkill for a puzzle as simple as this, but I'm hoping that the concepts learned will be applicable to more complicated puzzles in the future. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.